Good morning, everyone. And thank you to Barbara Taylor for playing the piano. While people are coming in and getting their seats, let me take this opportunity to ask, this is protocol, to ask all of the elected officials to please stand up so that they can be recognized. I know some have to leave before this is over. Congressman Over, where are you? I see our new district attorney, David Sullivan. We have several members from the Select Board in Amherst who I know are here, and Congressman Over is here too somewhere. So thank you all for coming. And members of the, members of the school committee are here as well. Thank you to them. I now get to introduce you to a wonderful addition to our community. He has been here for 9 years. So some people think that's not very new, but those of us who've been here forever know that that's really very new. And he has made his church a wonderful, wonderful community place, even though it's in Hadley. It used to be in Amherst, and it has the Amherst spirit. And I am just delighted that he has decided to live here, and he is going to speak to us now. Lyle Seeger.
It is an honor to be the official greeter to you for this 27th annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Breakfast. I do serve as pastor at Wesley United Methodist Church, who along with Goodwin Memorial AME Zion Church were the founders of this movement 27 years ago. And so along with my greetings comes those from the Reverend Johnson, pastor at the Goodwin Church. This scholarship breakfast is probably one of the best things that is done in this heart of the Pioneer Valley. We gather in a way that gives honor to the principal teachings of Reverend Dr. King, of different races, cultures, class, gender identity, and accents, sitting down together, both breaking bread and barriers. And while the scholarships that are given are really important and given to some fine, deserving students, which is one of the main drawing factors for this event, the example that all of you show in coming here, not only this year, but for many years, demonstrates to the children and the youth that we don't have to be polarized when we become adults. We show them that partisan rhetoric can be silenced and its damaging effects set aside, at least for the time that we are here together. Knowing many of you as I do, I know that these young people see you on the streets, in the grocery stores, and in the coffee shops. They also see you fulfilling the ideals of Reverend Dr. King in your day-to-day interactions with others. And this is the greatest value of what we're doing here today. So I'm curious how many of you are here at a breakfast, an MLK breakfast, for the very first time. Would you stand up? We want to see who you are, and we want to greet you. A lot of you are here for the first time. I know some of you who were on the original planning team 27 years ago, you've been around for many of these, or at least many of the 27 breakfasts. I'm wondering if there are any of you who are here who have been to all 27. Mary Wyatt, Ron Bell, Jim Collins, thank you, and there are others. Stan. Stan, right here, yes. Each of us come today having sampled the speeches of Reverend Dr. King. We've heard about his passion. By coming here today, we in essence admit to declaring his dream to be our dream of what America can be for all of its citizens and in its place in the world. Today we're going to hear compassionate testimony from the scholarship winners, marvel at their mature level of care and the passionate ideals that they hold. We're going to be blessed by Francis Crow's message to us today. And our challenge today, as in every day, is to put what we experience here into practice. Kwasi Kenna, who's the board of discipleship of the United Methodist Church chairperson, stated Dr. King fought for the righteousness and justice for all people. He turned a spotlight on America's conscience. That spotlight shines on us today. So be empowered by what you see and what you will hear. Be open to learning something new to apply in your life. We have been nourished by wonderful food for the task of bringing justice and peace, and be grateful for the sharing that takes place among us as brothers and sisters who share this world together. Welcome.
Thank you, Reverend Seeger. We now have the pleasure of getting to hear the Pelham Elementary School Choir under the direction of Agnes McCraven. Thank you, Pelham Elementary School students. We now go from music to poetry. And the person who will bring us poetry is Dr. Nancy Tolson. Good morning.
For him, let us make a revolutionary quilt by gathering pieces from the past that reflect the blood, the bruises, and the injustices that we must never forget. Choose synthetic fabrics from the place that is now home to remind us of our reality. Understand that this fabric has been difficult to blend and has had difficulty adapting to our circumstances. Obtain the natural fibers from the land of his ancestors that endured the Middle Passage, endured enslavement and the pains of freedom, and continue to shield us from all the whitewashing. Select the colors of his people, the colors of this land that has fed us, and the colors of the menstrual flow of every mother that envisioned a better life for her children. Include gold tones that are cherished because of its strength. It does not decay at the bottom of the salted ocean. It does not lose its value, nor does it sparkle after the burdens of the world are thrown at it. It stands strong, long-lasting, like the spirit of his people. Let the backing of this quilt be blue, to mark the music sung on wearied nights, moaned in jail cells, and seen on first day Mondays. Let this blue that is denim represent the peril of the elders that marched in white starched shirts underneath denim overalls, sometimes bloodied by injustice, with sticks, dogs, and fire hydrants. Let us use this blue, durable denim that labored to ensure there was food on family tables, roofs over loving heads, and tuition paid just so their children could never wear that blue denim in the same way again. Let us complete this revolutionary quilt that represents a king's life with history and culture. This is not a freedom quilt, even though there will be hidden arrows telling you which way to go. This is a revolutionary quilt, sewn with threads that have kept us together, that tie us to the same causes and attach us to the same prideful moments. Pieces choreographed into place by faith and the spirit of determination and creativity that flows forever in the veins of those who have been hated just for their imaginative thoughts and radiant hues of brown. Let us create a revolutionary quilt to the world so that others can be covered on cold days of rejection, confusion, and chaos. So others can be covered on those days of blessed assurance and hallelujah moments. Let us create this quilt filled with our dreams that overlap with his dreams as a token of celebration for the audacity of his existence. Amen.
Thank you very much. And I've been asked to point out that that was her original poetry. Thank you very much. We're making a slight change in the order of the program, and because we have some musicians here from UMass who have another obligation very soon and needed to leave a little earlier than expected, and so we're just going to change things around just a bit, and we're doing something a little special this morning. The MLK Breakfast Committee decided that they wanted to pay special tribute to one of our community members who we lost this past year within the last 12 months, George Parks. So the way I'd like to begin this is to ask all who are able, as you are able, to stand. because I'd like to do a moment of reflection and respect for a handful of people who we lost in this last year, each of them contributing to the life of this community in significant ways, each living the values and the dream of Martin Luther King. We lost Eva Schiffer this year, a longtime member of the Board of Selectmen, a former UMass faculty member, and a terrific leader in this community. We lost Billy Taylor, who graced this community, walked these streets, taught at UMass, was a national figure inspiring people through music. And we lost this great giant of music in this last few weeks, actually. Sally Venman, many of us know Sally. She and her husband Bill started the Valley Light Opera, active in their church, community leaders both, and we lost Sally. We lost Jerry Grady, who was one of the founders of the Amherst Chamber of Commerce, a UMass employee, a great booster of the UMass football team and the band, when neither were actually big and great, but helped them become great. Felice Yeskel just passed away in the last few days. A real civic leader, a person who spoke up for the LGBT community and for all people oppressed. I invite you to speak aloud, either softly or with full voice if you choose, the names of others that are on your hearts, your minds, that you'd like to remember today as we spend a moment of silent reflection for these, our neighbors and friends who passed on, and for any other persons who are in your hearts and your minds, including the people in Arizona lost in that tragic event last week.
Eugene Terry.
May all of these people and all of those who have no one to say their name rest in peace and be blessed.
Amen.
Thank you. So I have the happy task now of telling you about my friend George Parks, who this committee wanted to honor especially today because of his contributions to this community and beyond. I knew George from almost the first day he stepped foot into Amherst. I wasn't part of the hiring process, so I didn't meet him the first time he came to Amherst, but from his first day as the UMass band director, I knew and worked with George Parks, and he was a true giant, a true teacher, true leader. And I think it's totally appropriate that the committee decided to honor him because his values and his life and what he did and how he did it were so consistent with the same for Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King and George Parks were inspired and inspiring leaders. They were organizers of communities. They did not hold any elected public office, but they were leaders of the first order, and people listened and followed them and saw a world and a vision of what could be possible, and they worked toward that. George basically was a teacher of people who wanted to study and learn music, many of whom would go on to teach music, others who would just have it as an avocation. And he spent his entire life and all of the years with us here inspiring thousands of students here and across the country through his drum major academies in recognizing their potential, in taking those students from where they were to where they could be and move them along life's path. And hundreds and hundreds of those students stayed in touch with George through their careers, through their lives, because he touched them so deeply, he inspired them so well and so much that he became a permanent part of their lives, part of their families. He was a community builder. He took the fledgling UMass marching band, which barely had 100 students in it, and within a few years built a community of 300 musicians. And not only were they excellent musicians, but they were excellent students. And not only were they excellent musicians and excellent students, but they were civic-minded people. They participated in all kinds of activities in this community and beyond. They celebrated with this community. They did the Merry Maple every year. They marched in parades. They did the things that young people should do to start to connect with the community, and he inspired them to do that. He also recognized that not all people are brought into this place, this situation, with the same resources and the same capacity. So he was a nurturer. He was a person who took seriously the job of understanding where each student was in their life, in their capacity, their learning, and he helped them develop, he moved them to the next stage. And by doing work all across the country, he planted seeds in states through his drum major academy all over this country of young people who would go on to lead in their communities. And because of the values that he taught, both at the academy and here at UMass, these people were not only good musicians and students, they were good citizens. And so we pay tribute today to George for the contributions he made to this community, for the contributions he made to those students, all of those students, thousands of students over these years. And like Dr. King, taken too early from us, much more work to be done, many more students to be helped, many more people to be inspired. And we're very sorry for the loss of our dear friend George Parks. We're joined today by Jeannie, his wife, and Michael, his son. Where are you? Where are we? Could you stand so you could be recognized? I'm sorry. His daughter is here as well, and I apologize, I've forgotten your name. Catherine. Welcome, Catherine. So we are so proud and pleased to have had George be our friend and neighbor, and we miss him terribly. And but he will live on through those students that he inspired, those students that he taught here and elsewhere. And it's true for both George and Dr. Parks. Two things that I learned, Dr. King and Dr. Parks, two things that have always guided me that I learned growing up in my religious tradition. The first is that if you lose but one child, it is as though you've lost the whole world. But if you save but one child, it's as though you've saved the whole world. And both Dr. King through his work and Dr. Parks through his work saved many, many children. And those children went on to do good things. And the final is that you're not expected to complete the work in your lifetime, but neither must you fail to do your part. Of Dr. Parks and Dr. King, we can surely say that they did their part. And taken too soon, they could have done more, but while they were here, they devoted every minute and every ounce of their energy to making this world a better place for all of us. So we miss both Dr. King and Dr. Parks. And now we have a special treat from the UMass Marching Band, a contingent who will bring some of the music that inspires and motivates UMass students.
very much to the marching band of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And welcome to the Parks family. I think we should all take a deep breath before we start on our next speaker. Senator Rosenberg was talking in his remarks about how it is incumbent on us to do our part. If there is anybody that I can think of who has done more than her part in her lifetime, it is our keynote speaker, Frances Crowe. Frances Crowe has lived in Northampton for many years, but she has affected many of us in the whole valley, not just in her city. She grew up in Missouri. She went to Stevens College in Missouri for the first 2 years, and then she went to Syracuse University where she graduated. I didn't realize that the reason that who we have to thank for Frances and Tom having moved here is the Clark School in Northampton. Because one of their sons was hearing impaired, and that was the reason that they moved to Northampton. She has been working on issues of peace and justice for her whole life. I moved here in 1972, and those were turbulent times, and I went to Washington twice in 1 month on buses that left from the center of town. One was for an anti-Vietnam War protest, and one was for the counter-inauguration for Richard Nixon. Frances Crowe was on both of those buses, and we drove down and protested, and then we came back. We didn't spend the night, and we were all completely wiped out, except for Frances. People were trying to sleep on the bus, and Frances was talking to anyone who showed any sign of consciousness. She was indefatigable, and she has remained that way. One of my sons was 2 years old at the time, and I overheard him tell his brother that Mom was going to washing machine again. She is going to talk to us about her vision for what she thinks Martin Luther King Jr. would be doing and thinking and saying now. Please welcome Frances Crowe.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to share with you the issues I think Dr. Martin Luther King would be addressing today if he had been permitted to live out his life. I think the great economic injustice and violence in our society would be the issues he would be working on, as he has said at Riverside Church in 1967. The United States is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. That was 44 years ago. And also, at the same time, he said, A nation that spends more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. The empire is defending corporate wealth and power. We live in a sick, neurotic nation, and we need to repent and organize. I think King would say, stop the wars, bring the troops home, pay reparations for the damages done to Iraq and Afghanistan and our veterans, and rebuild America. He would call for a massive jobs program to put America back to work, building a total public transportation system, repairing the infrastructure of the country, refueling America with solar, wind, and turbines in the river. He would call for investments in our education system, in towns and urban areas throughout the country. Most certainly, he would support a single-payer health care that would put us on the road to providing quality health care for all, including those suffering from mental illness. And he would address our prison industrial system, an empire of its own that is out of control. King had developed a class perspective, moving from civil rights to human rights, and realized that we needed to make radical changes in the structure of our society to redistribute wealth and power. And prisons are where we see this need most clearly. Almost 2.4 million people are now incarcerated in the United States. More than 1 million of them are African Americans. Not because there is greater criminality of African Americans, but because lack of access to good legal representation and over-policing of poor urban neighborhoods. And because the criminal justice system is still imbued with racism, which plays out disproportionately long sentencing for African Americans. For example, a report in 2008 by Human Rights Watch called Targeting Blacks stated that African American men are nearly 12 times more likely to be imprisoned for street drug convictions than white men. Massachusetts spends $1.4 billion for prisons and jails. It spends just $973 million for public higher education. Jails in the 4 western Massachusetts counties cost $116 million in 2009. For the 4 western Massachusetts counties, most of the people in them are there because they are too poor to make bail, not because they have been convicted of any crime. Massachusetts African Americans and Latinos make up 12% of the population, but 54% of those are incarcerated. People of color are 89% of people serving mandatory minimum sentences for drug convictions. African Americans make up 13% of our U.S. population and use drugs in the same proportion as Latinos and Caucasians. But they make up 35% of the people arrested for drugs. 55% of people getting convicted for drug sentences, and 74% of people sentenced to prison for drugs in Massachusetts. And in Massachusetts, this is even higher. According to a new report by the Brennan Center for Justice called Criminal Justice Debt, a Barrier to Reentry, nationally it is estimated that 80 to 90% of those charged with criminal offenses qualify for indigent defense. Nearly 65% of the people incarcerated did not receive a high school diploma. 70% of prisoners function at the lowest literacy levels. Nationally, African Americans comprise 13% of the population. They comprise 28% of those arrested and 40% of those incarcerated. It is estimated that 14 to 27% of prisoners will go to homeless shelters after being released from prison. Georgia leads the nation with an astounding 1 in 13 of its adults, citizens in prisons or jails. When advocating for ever longer sentences becomes a standard campaign tactic for ambitious politicians, when fortunes are made for overcharging inmate families for telephone calls and raking in 10% from their paltry funds families send to their loved ones, when prisons become growth industries with their own lobbyists, punishment becomes a crime. A few weeks ago, prisoners in Georgia organized a nonviolent campaign through at least 6 prisons using their cell phones. Thousands stayed in their cells and refused to work until some of their grievances could be addressed. If King were here today, I think he would be in Georgia organizing support for the prisoners. I was impressed with the coalition that came together to hear their grievances. The Nation of Islam, the Green Party of Georgia, the NAACP, the Ordinary People's Society, attorneys from the ACLU of Georgia, and State Representative Roberta Abdullah Salam. A former prisoner, Reverend Kenny Glasgow, who spent 14 years behind the walls, founded the Ordinary People's Society. Now he runs a series of reentry programs for former inmates in Georgia and Alabama. He said, "We got to sit down with correctional officials and gain access to the prisons because of the courageous stand of those behind the walls. The prisoners have done all they can do. Now it's up to us to build a movement out here that can make the changes which have to be made." The other nonviolent organizing in prison King would support, I think, is the Lucasville 5 out in Ohio, who are organizing a rolling hunger strike to protest their 17 years of solitary confinement. Stoughton Lynn, historian and lawyer, has written a book about the Lucasville Five. I think it was about 5 years ago it was published. And he's just updated it and reissued it. But he feels they are innocent of the crime, but they have been held for 17 years in solitary confinement. Would Nelson Mandela have been prepared to lead the nation of South Africa if he had been held in solitary confinement? I think not. Solitary confinement is something I was aware of but had not focused on until Bradley Manning, the Marine private who was alleged to have given documents to WikiLeaks, ended up in solitary confinement in Quantico, Virginia. I think he's been there something like 5 months. This opened up the fact that at least 50,000 people in the United States are being held 23 hours a day in solitary confinement in our prisons. This has prompted the psychologists for social responsibility to go on record and send a letter to the War Secretary. I think we used to call him Defense Secretary. Robert Gates, protesting this cruel treatment. Atul Gawande, the physician who writes for the New Yorker, wrote a very disturbing piece in 2009 called Hellhole about the dehumanizing effects of solitary confinement. What kind of a people have we become? I feel this is an issue that King would be organizing to reveal. Why have we become this kind of a society? I think we need to look at our lifestyle, how we live, what is our eco-footprint. For the way we have come to live in America, it would take 5 to 7 planets for everyone in the world to live as we live. And we have only one. I feel working on my eco-footprint is a healing way to live today. To downsize, walk, use public transportation, no air travel, eat locally only, and to question all of my activities. I find it's a slower but richer way to live. I am online and I find it a wonderful resource. I want to wrap up by urging all to plug in and listen daily to Democracy Now! For the truth. Not only the truth in what's happening, but the truth in the people who are working for change. Our commercial media, under the Murdoch empire, fuels lies and hate. Democracy Now! And Free Speech TV gives us the truth and hope, I think. There's a lot of organizing going on all over this country. And I like to remember, once people believed in human sacrifice, not anymore. Once people believed in slavery, not anymore. Once people believed that women could not vote, not anymore. I hope in your lifestyle, your life, you will be able to say, once people believed in solitary confinement, not anymore. Once people believed in the industry of prisons, not anymore. Once people believed in war, not anymore. What are your wishes? What will you work on? Thank you.
Before turning this over to Senator Rosenberg, I will just say, I don't think she will mind my saying this, that she is 91 years old. And that unless the sidewalks are covered with ice and snow, she walks everywhere she goes.
Thank you, Frances. That was terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're entering the final segment of our program, which is when we have special recognitions of members of our community. First, the young scholars who have distinguished themselves. And Richmond, who's the chair of the Scholarship and Awards Committee, will present those. And then there are, I think, some awards for adult folks as well. Is that correct in your committee? Great. Richmond.
Thank you. This is the one time that, as a community, we celebrate one of the values that we cherish so much. Scholarship not for its own sake, a scholarship that is geared towards serving community. And so we open up an essay competition among high school seniors, and they inform us of what they've been doing, both in the classroom, in the academy, and in the community, and then we select the winners out of the pool that apply. And when I call them forward, they will share with us all how they convinced us that they are the winners for this year, and you will know yourselves how it is. Part of how we support this program is the donations that we get from this community as the MLK committee, and we're very grateful for your donations and for the tickets. I'll take this platform to encourage you to do more donations and to ask Canvas for more people to donate to this worthy cause. We'll be able to support those among our children who are doing very well and who are doing the very things we want to encourage in our community. And so I'd like to call up Deka Farah.
Dr. King once said, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education." I truly believe, as Dr. King did, in the power of education. In a way, I am a living example of this power. Years ago, my father came to the United States from Somalia on a full academic scholarship. His effort, determination, and persistence earned him the most prestigious international academic honor, the Fulbright Scholar Award. Throughout my childhood, the importance of education was instilled in me. The notion of education and the opportunities that education provides and creates have shaped my entire value and belief system. Knowing the hardships and difficulties my father faced and the millions of people worldwide that he competed against academically for one scholarship, I believe I owe it to him, my family, and most importantly, myself, to truly recognize and fully appreciate the beauty of education. I genuinely believe in the capacity of an education and the knowledge, empowerment, and opportunity that it provides. Each and every day, I strive to challenge myself in my own education. I want to thank my family, friends, Ms. Custard and Mrs. Haygood, and all who have helped and continue to help me pursue my dreams. I especially want to thank my father.
Figarella.
For as long as I can remember, I have felt that fitting into a crowd or going with the flow just was not good enough. I have always felt that when something is disagreeable, I have to make my voice heard. Not out of selfish desires, but out of a need to utilize my voice for many who cannot. Standing up for human rights is something that has been and remains to be an issue of the utmost importance to me. Specifically, the rights of minorities, people of color, and immigration rights are what I struggle for. Coming from a Latino family, issues of immigration hit close to home for me. I have watched and experienced the struggle that so many go through in attempts to gain acceptance in this country. This is why I have always made it a goal of mine to advocate for immigrant and worker rights. Dr. King showed us that words can be powerful, and it is important that we all speak up for what we believe in. He also set forth the example that acting on our beliefs is what's most vital. I believe that we all need to do our best to advocate that everything that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood for. I set an example for others because I show the expectations set forth by Dr. Martin Luther King. I'd like to thank my friends and my family, especially my parents, and also my community that has supported me through all of this, with a special thanks to Ms. Custard and Ms. Haygood, as well as the committee for recognizing me.
Darius Payton.
Wow. This really means a lot, just to start off. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr., as everybody here knows, was a great man, and he had this great dream, and now his legacy is still being remembered. At times I feel like his legacy is only being remembered though, and that it's not being continued. But then we come to events such as these, where I see all these people from all these different backgrounds coming together and just lifting up the youth, and that just really means a lot to me, to the point where it's hard for me to speak. And for those of you who know me know that I always love to speak. You know, I deeply admire Dr. King's commitment to leadership, as demonstrated through his public speaking, which moved people to action. I admire how he was able to use that particular ability for the greater good in fighting for civil rights. I too strive to continue the struggle for equality for all peoples by giving speeches that address socioeconomic issues in society. I like to model myself after Dr. King. In 2009, I delivered a speech on violence and its effect on minority youth, in which I cited Dr. King's ideas, which I believe to be relevant in addressing such issues today. And I'm strongly committed to maintaining Dr. King's dream of reaching equality through nonviolence. You know, I believe, as Dr. King believed, as he once said, darkness does not drive out darkness, Only light can do that. Hate does not drive out hate. Only love can do that. You know, some of Dr. King's dreams have come true, but as I said, other aspects of his dream have not been fulfilled yet. And to that extent, we can still use Dr. King's ideas to address the modern socioeconomic equality and justice issues today. Dr. King also said that life's most persistent question is, what are you doing for others? And I find myself asking myself that question a lot. Sometimes I feel a little bogged down. I feel like it's me against the world, you know, but that could just be because I'm a teenager, you know. But then I remember the things that Dr. King had to go through, the things that Malcolm X had to go through, the things that Rosa Parks had to go through, the things that my father had to go through, the things that my mother had to go through. And I just realized that I do not have the luxury to be overwhelmed. I feel like there's no time left. If it doesn't happen now, when's it gonna happen? And again, I'm in awe. Like, today has been amazing. It's been more than I could have ever dreamed. And I just want to thank my parents. I want to thank Miss Custard and Miss Haygood. I want to thank the committee. Most of all, I want to thank everybody who is here today, who has given me hope to continue his dream. Thank you.
Congratulations to all three of our young scholars, and I just want to say, yeah, let's give them all another round of applause. That's great. Thank you to their parents and their teachers, their friends and their neighbors. And I just want to say also, to you, Richmond, you are such a great addition to our community. We love you. This guy has, if we could bottle that upness, this guy is always up. I've never seen this guy, but he didn't have a big smile on his face. You bring joy into the room. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to continue with the awards with the adult portion, and where is Reynolds? Are you ready to do your thing? Okay, Reynolds is going to come forward for the committee, and he is going to present the next award or awards. I'm not sure how many. Come on forward.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. What a rousing welcome. Good morning. Thank you. I always look forward to this opportunity, this once-a-year opportunity where we come together as a community, and we're together. Certainly, we're going to continue together. At this time, a few moments, I want to focus upon this first annual. We'll annualize this. The Dr. Norma Jean Anderson Civil Rights and ACT Achievement Award. Most of you know Norma Jean Anderson. Most of you remember her. And this is a significant moment for the MLK Breakfast Committee and for the Radar Committee. I'll talk about that more in just a few moments relative to Radar. On behalf of the Radar Group, we are indeed grateful for their wisdom and courage to permit this venue to present this announcement of this first annual award. A long time coming for this individual, And I wish to thank the committee colleagues, Dr. Russ Vernon Jones, who is attending a seminar on diversity. Also, I wish to thank a diversity member, Pat Anabaku, who is a parent and school activist and a presidential advocate for special education students in the Amherst system. Go ahead, you can applaud, it's all right. And a contributing liaison members, Rick Hood of the school committee, Kathleen Anderson, an important liaison to the community for her work in the study circles, and our radar convener, I like to use that word, she's our chair, she's the spark of the radar committee, Dr. Jackie Wolf. Now, this radar organization was formed about 6 years ago as a positive action plan from those study circles. It was an initiative now in its 6 years, I mentioned earlier, and RADAR, R-A-D-A-R, is an acronym for Race, Discipline, Action, and Rights. Each one of those words says itself in its own word. I would now like to bring a person of stature in this community, Rhonda Gordon. I would want you to applaud, and when she gets up here, I will have a few moments to say about her, but I want you to enjoy her as she proceeds forward. Rhonda is the oldest daughter, firstborn of the Anderson family. She is a consultant locally and nationally, and a facilitator of diversity. Rhonda recently facilitated the Human Rights Commission retreat, and your Human Rights Commission. Not ours, but your Human Rights Commission. Much like our beloved drum sister for justice, Norma Jean, Rhonda is the first of that apple that fell from the tree. I hope for you to give her a warm welcome as she shares with us some personal aspects of her life as a daughter and how she would like her mother to have responded to this award in her name. But more, we want to appreciate Dr. Anderson's legacy of her mother, in which we celebrate her name today in this award. Rhonda, please.
Woo! Man, I am so moved by everything that has preceded me. Coming to this moment to talk about my mom. I want to make a correction because if I don't make this correction, I'm going to hear about it probably for the rest of my life. But my two brothers were born before me. My brother, Laverne W. Anderson Jr., he's now in spirit with my mother and my father. And my brother, Reverend Carlos Anderson, is here with us today. Will you stand up, please, to recognize you? And my sister, Reverend Crystal Robertson, is here today. Is Kathleen Anderson here? Where are you? All right, Kathleen. Yes, I'm thanking God for our family as if you know my mom at all. She knew what was important, and she knew who she was living her life on behalf of, and it started there. But I also want to recognize our spiritual family here from Hope Unity Church, who she lived her life on behalf of you too, so if you could stand up, I appreciate that. And anyone here who knew my mother, who loved my mother, who is not surprised at all that an award would be presented in her name, would you stand up? Thank you very much. Actually, what happened when Kathleen told me about this award, she said that my brother, who he is an awesome orator, if you've ever heard him speak, he said that I would be the right person to present. And I was so happy at the time when he said that. And some because Radar is an outgrowth of some work that really, really meant a lot to me. And it was the study circles. I was a part of that first facilitating group. I partnered with Barry Costello, if you all remember him, town manager for 23 years. And I also consulted with the leadership of that group for years after that. So I'm really, really pleased. And the thing that I was excited about study circles around was that it was some work in the area of social justice and anti-racism, anti-classism, that wasn't so much about the transformation of a person's soul, which is hard work, but what it led to was, what are we going to do? Whether you get it or don't get it, what are you going to do? Right. And that was inspiring to me, and I got back on the saddle again, because unlike my mother, I internalize hurt and wounds. I can tell you that, so I have to take these breaks. And that is why it's very probable that there won't be an award given in my name ever. And it's I'm telling you the truth. There'll be an award given in your name, brother. He just said, sometimes it's so overwhelming that, like he looks at what Dr. King did, and he said it's just that's not an option to be overwhelmed. But my mother got up every single morning and asked the question, what's important? She got up every single morning and she said, who do I live my life on behalf of? And that's what she did every day, and she continued to do it every day until she died in April 25th, 2006. So foolishly, when I was about 38 years old, I was living in Seattle. I was a consultant, like my mom. I was a teacher and a professor in applied behavioral science graduate school. And I did church, and I traveled all the time. And I bought this mug that said, it's official, I've become my mother. Something I said I would never do. But that's not true. I wish it were. She had something very few of us do have. She was born in 1932 in Springfield, Illinois, the land of Lincoln. She was born in love and nurtured by love by parents who adored her. She was smart, really smart. She skipped the 5th grade and the 7th grade. She got a scholarship at 16 years old to attend the University of Illinois, which she did. She married, she had children. She became the first African-American teacher in the city of Springfield, Illinois. She went on to become the Assistant Superintendent of Schools in St. Paul, Minnesota. She came here in 1970, became a professor in the School of Education, and then Assistant Dean, and then Associate Dean. And all of this she did, and she did some other things. I'm just talking about the parts in the academic world. All of this she did, and while she was doing it, she was living her life on behalf of those. She taught 7th and 8th grade math, those students in her class. And when she became a professor, she did the same. She spent her life every day for the doctorate students in the program. She's responsible for people going to school who would never have gone to school. She's responsible for people staying in school when they wanted to leave. She's responsible for people graduating. She's responsible for people succeeding once they did graduate. She was a champion in this field of human rights and civil rights, and she did it. And I want to tell you this one thing that happened to her when she was 11 years old, because it's very familiar to many of your experiences and certainly mine as well. She won. I said she skipped 5th and 7th grade, but when she was in 8th grade, she was the smartest kid in the class. And along with other smart kids in their class all over the state of Illinois, there was an honoring of accomplishment and achievement for everybody in that state. And she was the only African American person in the state of Illinois to be honored. She was also the only student in that group across state that could not stay in the hotel at which the conference was given in. So, this is where I say she didn't internalize her wounds, and her buoyancy and her love kept her going. When she told me this story, which she didn't tell very many sad stories, I'll tell you that right now. But when she told me this story, I said, so what happened to you inside when that happened? And she said, I thought about what was next. That's Norma Jean. What's next? It kept her going. I'm saying, in my mind, is why didn't bitterness take root? That would make anybody bitter, right? Or, no, not anybody. It would make me bitter. This is unfair, it's unjust. It would be a moment in time that would interrupt me, and there's been many moments and times that have interrupted me. And I have, at an early age like that, I said, there's something wrong. Well, what my mom did with There's Something Wrong, and how she chose to use her life, is to do everything that she could to make sure it didn't happen to somebody else. This is a perfect context, the Martin Luther King breakfast and his celebration, because that's his use of his life energy. The use of his life energy now, this particular hotel in Illinois, it's because of Martin Luther King that that hotel cannot say you can't stay here anymore. Or you can't stay here because of your color, or you can't stay here because of so-and-so, because it's, you know, frankly, against the law. And maybe it's not like, you know, like you can, maybe you'll get already occupied or other ways that people who don't want you to be somewhere, let you know that they don't want you to be somewhere. But this was legal and it was common practice at the time she was growing up. And when I listened to Francis Crowe, I know you don't remember me, but I remember you when I was 17 years old when you were helping my brother out, who had gotten drafted for the Vietnam War. That's how, you know, how big your presence has been. But listening to you today and knowing that our work is, their volumes, it's still enormous. it's like, what do we do around our daily action to do something and to do our part? Because just listening to the facts, it could be another overwhelming experience like, what can I do? So I appreciate so much the quote that I want to use from Dr. King today has to do with our life begins to end the moment we are silent about the things that matter. And my mother used her voice, and she was a fierce and most ardent advocate for people whose voices could not be heard. And many people in this room are that same person. Why it's Norma Jean and not someone else? I tried to get the answer to this question. How did this award get to be under her name, in her name? And I don't have the answer, so maybe someone would say at some point, like, why Norma Jean? I think she deserves it big time, but then I'm her daughter. I'm her daughter. But what I do want to say about her, and it's something that I hope I can get through without crying, is that Martin Luther King breakfast, I think it was the 23rd one, was the first breakfast that she didn't attend. And it was because she had passed away in '06. And what the committee gave our family was a DVD of the 22nd breakfast that she was MC for. And what I want you to know is it wasn't until last night that I had what it took to actually listen to it and look at it. The pain of her passing has been tremendous in so many ways. And so it was the first time that I saw her animated since the day she passed. And I thank the committee for that, and I also want to tell you something that I observed when I watched her. This was an event where Barry Costello got special recognition. And he didn't know he was getting special recognition. And he talked about discovering it when he was looking at the program. And he talked about shaking in his boots. Because somewhere along the line, as hard as we work, and working in a daily way, and succeeding at some things, Norma Jean, I can tell you, she had a very, very high rate of success around advocating for other people. And there was something that she was doing and wanted to do and leading on behalf of Hope Church that she was not successful in. And what Barry said in that speech was that he was humbled by the fact that someone would recognize him as great, somebody worth recognition, because he had not succeeded in Hope Church being able to build a church where Hope Church wanted to build a church. And that was one of the things, and he talked about a few other things. But the reason why I mention that is because most of us know that if it was all about just people, and my mother had an enormous love for people, and that's why I think she could sustain what she did on a daily basis. We know that racism is something beyond people. We know that. We know that it's a force and an energy and a spirit that came to kill and destroy and steal. We know that. So in the case where she was not successful, in the case where Barry was saying, I don't even know that I deserve this award because I was unsuccessful here and I was unsuccessful here, in getting what, we want, or in getting justice, or in getting, an African-American church on the main streets like the white churches are on main streets, and so forth. But when we have failed, here's what I know my mother would say. My mother would say, the fight was worth fighting anyway. And I totally agree with her. I want to say that the other thing that I noticed in that tape when I watched it was, she said, thank you all for coming and see you next year. So 3 months later, she passed on to heaven. And so I'm saying that because of the list that our senator read to us about the people who are no longer with us. But I'm also going to say, just like Martin Luther King, dead don't mean dead. Just because you die don't mean you're dead. And in the form of this radar, that's how my mom's going to live for a long, long time. Because I hope it is the first annual. I hope next year, and I don't know who's the recipient, but I know that they've got to be great. But I don't know, I hope it's somebody next year as well. Because in many ways, this is an equivalent of what you students just got, only it's for adults. That that adult is taking action on a daily way. That adult loves humanity. That adult loves students. And I'm very grateful that it was, this award is in my mother's name. I think she deserves it. I appreciate it so much. So thank you very much. Thank you.
I wanted I wanted Rhonda to stay here because everything we do here on in is probably very new to most of you. Most of you do not know much about radar, but there is a member who knows much about it. I'm going to call that individual Michael Burkhart. Dr. Michael Burkhart, come forward, please. Michael is an early member of radar, and he has 2 children that passed through the system, 2 through Fort River, actually, and 1 through high school and another through the Performing Arts School. He has been a consultant, national consultant to corporate industry, corporate America, who needs help, He has a wealth of successes in reshaping the attitudes of America, corporate America, that is, and I hope that leads into the entire shaping of America. And with that, I'm going to have him help us to know more about what we need to do as a community, and as a radar group, and as citizens of Amherst. Michael?
Good morning. My role is to introduce the first recipient of this award, and as I think you'll see, this individual embodies the spirit of Dr. Norma Jean Anderson. The real impetus, one of the major impetuses of the formation of radar is tied up in a fact of modern racism. And I'm not talking about prejudice here, I'm talking about systems that perpetuate disequal treatment. And it has to do with discipline of students across America. Across this country today, and for the last 20 years that I've been tracking it, Black and Latino students get expelled at rates 2 to 4 times their percentage in the student population. And unfortunately, we have the same problem here in Amherst. So one of the major things that prompted the formation of RADAR was how are we going to address this? And RADAR has been in discussion with the school system since its inception to develop an in-depth understanding of what's driving those structures today, as well as what do we have to do to change it. The other thing two other things RADAR has accomplished. One is this award, and the second is the position of ombudsperson in the high school, which was something that was first articulated and lobbied by RADAR. So our efforts, while being worth doing it for the sake of doing it, have yielded some concrete successes. Let me say a few other things that provide context for the person who's about to receive this award. As whites, we do not have in this country the collective experience of sending our kids to schools where the teachers are primarily of a different race, where the administrators are of a different race, where the school system is primarily of a different race. We have no knowledge of what that's like. And if you talk to parents of color, you realize it's a whole different world when you're on the other side of that. The person who is the recipient of the first Dr. Norma Jean Anderson Award is somebody who is very aware of that and has really dedicated his career to that problem. Because across America, around 6th grade, 7th grade, Black and Latino boys go from being cute to being threatening. And as I say, we white people do not know what it would be like to have to deal with that with our children and to teach our sons how not to get shot when they're pulled over by the police, as they will all their life. So there's a racial divide in our experience on this. The individual who is the recipient of this award has been in a pivotal role in the lives of many boys of color, as well as girls of color, but particularly in a school system where there are so few men of color in teaching positions. This individual has, for generations of elementary school children of color, been there to help these boys make this transition from elementary school to middle school and to high school. When they will be treated differently by society, by their peers, and by the school system. And I don't say this to lay blame, it's a reality. And until we understand how it works, we're not going to change it. But this individual, it's my deep suspicion that this individual could easily have retired and would on one level have preferred to do that, but has stayed in this position to be there for these children and is still there today.
Thank you, Michael. You set the stage, and I think it's important that you know that the nominator of this individual is Dr. Susan Kennedy Marks, who is in the audience somewhere there. And she writes to me as the nominator, "Dear Reynolds, I want to enthusiastically nominate this person who is a teacher at Fort River Elementary School for 30+ years. The 6 criteria you present for the Norma Jean Anderson Award are all fully met by this person. That person's work every day is with students here at the building. He supports all his students and shepherds many students of color across the school. Children look to him with admiration, respect, good honor, and do I dare say love? Yes. This person educates others as well as educating fully his students, offering perspectives on teacher responses to discipline and learning that can only come from a person who is a veteran, expert teacher, and a person of color who knows what he or she speaks of. This person also chaired the development of a social justice commitment over several years to the district's teachers. the current lens on equity and the tenacious focus on child development combines to make a document that is essential and outstanding in capital words. I am pleased to have Michael bring us home with the announcement.
It is truly an honor to present this award to Mr. Roger Collins.
Darius, you said it best. I'm speechless. But for those of you who really know me, that's not likely. Thank you very much, Radar Committee, for the MLK Committee to allow this to happen right here and right now. Funny story, I was 5 years old, running around Third Baptist Church. A contemporary of Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Paul A. Full of Love. Dr. King came and visited, and I was having races after church, as we always did. My shoe came untied. I had lost 4 races in a row. I tied up, got ready to tie my shoe, and someone said, ready, said, go. I got to go up, and Dr. King put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, son, I think you need to sit this one out and tie that shoe. And tuck in your shirt. And come stand with us for a few minutes. I didn't realize my tie was up here, my shirt was turned this way, and I had lost 4 consecutive races. And I saw what he did, and I followed. And I remember him looking up when I was 5 years old, but it didn't mean anything then. But to be recognized, for someone to say, good work, faithful servant. It has come around, and I am thankful. I am thankful to my wife, Jackie, who puts up when I'm not there doing something else, chasing some kid down. I'm thankful to Maritha and Adrian for keeping me honest. I can only get away with so much. I'm thankful for my grandchildren who have been a part of that because they've been in my class. And I'm thankful for the opportunity that I've had. And I know that it didn't come just because I stepped there. I thank God for all his blessings. Thank you.
Thank you to Radar, to Reynolds for all the work that you do, and congratulations to the first recipient of the Norma Jean Anderson Award. And now we're coming to the close of our program. Ellen is at the piano. Reverend Higgins, if you would come forward. This will be my last time at the microphone. And as we prepare to close, I just wanted to ask all of the members of the MLK Breakfast Committee to please stand and be recognized by your neighbors for organizing this. Very good, and thank you all for coming, and we invite you to carry the spirit of this event and this day forward with you throughout the year and find the little things and the big things that you can do to make a difference so that we bring the meaning of today alive through our actions. And now we're going to ask you all to rise and join and lift every voice and sing and remain standing for the closing benediction.